Thank you for stopping by Masks Off, uncovering the latest topics that you need to know about, from business, human trafficking, teen-related issues, mental health and wellness, and everything in between. Stay tuned for your host, Toseika Thomas, keeping it real, honest, and relatable. Welcome to Masks Off, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hello, hello, hello. I am your host, Toseika. Welcome to Mask Off. We are here with Ms. Nickey, and we're going to talk about her experience as a teen mom. Ms. Nickey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Okay. So I'm Nickey, and I'm a 43-year-old mother of two sets of twins. First set, which started my teen pregnancy, they're Deontay and Devontae, and my second set, which is Derek and Danae, they have been pretty much the foundation of my life in this journey, and just how I evolve each and every day. I base it off of what I want them to be able to see me have victory over, and even my failures.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. That's who I am.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Two sets of twins. I thought it was hard with 3 kids, but 2 sets of twins, I know you probably wanted to pull your hair out plenty of days.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I actually did. I can, to be totally transparent, because I've done the work to be able to tell my story and just talk about it and be comfortable with it. Oh my God, as a teen pregnancy, I was like, what am I getting ready to do?
Right.
How am I getting ready to do this? You know, it's not one child, I have twins. I'm 17. What am I getting ready to do?
Yeah.
And real life kicked in for me in like 2 quarters. 6 months. Real life, I had to go from a young girl that was baffled, I'm getting ready to have some type of freedom,
right,
to saying, hey, no, you're gonna have freedom, but you're gonna have to be very strategic in how you move.
Right.
And that was the beginning of wisdom. That was the beginning of it for me. And I'll say, the very first moment that it was very humbling for me, and I had to embrace how society looked at young pregnancies, was me walking across the stage. I was, oh my God, almost 200 pounds because I had a set of twins. I was not really popular in school, but people knew me.
Right.
And they knew, like, oh my God, Nickey is pregnant with twins. And so many of them was proud of me because I was still graduating. But for me, I was like, I'm not going to be able to pursue my dreams.
Wow.
So behind the scenes for myself, it was more so, okay, if I can't pursue my dreams, I have to make sure I position myself mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, the best I could at my age, to put all my admirations and dreams and things of that nature into my kids.
Right.
And that was the tunnel vision I've had up until maybe 4 years ago, where I just started to reintroduce myself to me.
Right. Yeah, I
know, right?
Way too well. So being a teen mom myself, I had my first daughter at 15 in high school. Let's talk about the fears. And for me, it was, I guess, because my family was very religious, I was taught to be embarrassed of being a teen mom. So let's talk about some of those hurdles that still to this day, people say, oh yeah, it's more common now, but we still have this idea or certain judgments against teen moms. So let's talk about how you felt, your experiences dealing with that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to say, I'm sorry you experienced the religious point of being so, I don't know, condemned, because I received that same treatment. My family was very religious, borderline cultish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I got pregnant, it wasn't that they just scrutinized me in front of me. It was the undertone of when I walked into the room,
right,
that actually molded the insecure part of me.
Right.
I know that now, but then I didn't know. I just thought something was wrong. Like, oh my God, God is not gonna forgive me. Oh, I'm trapped. Oh my God, I'm dirty. I'm this,
Right.
And it took me almost 2 decades to unprogram myself to know that everything that has happened with my teenage pregnancy, on a spiritual note, it had to happen so I can be where I am right now.
Right.
So I can be able to voice my opinion and not have a biased judgment
Right.
of someone that made a similar decision, as a teen pregnancy, or someone that's done something worse or better or worse.
Right.
But for me, growing up, it made me feel like I would never be victorious,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like I am shunned upon. I'm unclean, and when I walk into a room, no matter how talented I am, no matter what I offer on a positive note, they're going to somehow sense on my forehead that this is a teenage pregnancy and she does not make good decisions.
Right.
And that spirit kind of traveled with me for a long time until I had to fight back as a teenager. And how I fought back, truthfully, for me, was isolation.
Mm.
I isolated myself from people that supported what I was feeling in the inside that I didn't have the nerve to talk about. And then I increased my how I interacted with other people that inspired me. I if that makes sense.
Right.
Those who fed that insecurity or that darkness, I totally I didn't disrespect them or anything of that nature. I just kind of made it be known, like, oh, I'm gonna go over here, or I'll shy away from conversations or never go to events.
Right.
And like I said, I strategically spoke to certain people about certain things. I even went into eating certain foods, fasting. It went so deep for me because I really wanted to look in the mirror and not see what I was programmed to be as a teenage pregnancy.
Right.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about, okay, so when did you find that your voice to get to that point, that breaking point, when you realized that it was the judgment of people and not the judgment of God? Like, what was your breaking point to find that voice within you to say, it's okay that, I don't want to say you messed up because then make it seem like your child is a mistake. Your kids are a mistake and they're not. But what was your breaking point, and how did you get through that?
Okay, my breaking point, it was a tangible breaking point. I went and got my first apartment. I think I was 18. I went and got my apartment, and it was so tough. I was working at a bank. I was making decent money for that time as an 18, 19-year-old young lady, but I had 2 kids. They were eating up, daycare was eating up everything I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a decision to apply for Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
I applied for Section 8. I received Section 8 a year later, right?
Mm-hmm.
A year later, I received Section 8. I'm on Section 8, and like the second month I was on it, they kept prying. What hours? How many hours did you work? Who's living in the household? What's this? What's that? And I'm like, man, like it reminded me of the scrutiny that I received growing up in my household.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? That was my breaking point. I said, I will not. I'm getting ready to figure out how not to rely on any entity that gives that same forceful, I call it slavery,
right,
type of mentality. I refuse. So what I did is I totally got off Section 8 and I worked my butt off. I'm talking about at the bank, grandma's house. I worked it. I didn't sleep. I just worked. Me and my mate, we worked, and I was able to successfully buy my first home at 20 years old.
Wow.
Because I was just like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
That was my breaking point for me on a tangible level. On a spiritual level, the breaking point for me was, to be totally honest, me helping one of my oldest sons with homework.
Mm.
I can remember being so bothered, like, boy, why aren't you reading this? I was so frustrated with him. Oh my God, I was so frustrated with him. And I still to this day remind him of, do you remember how little I made you feel?
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, Ma, I remember that.
Mm.
And I also remember all the ways that you went back and you corrected that wrong.
Right.
That was an eye-opener for me when I said, oh my God, I am duplicating my previous environment
Right.
onto my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened in such a way that I didn't even know I was doing it until I looked at him and I seen the little me
Right.
in him. And I said, oh my gosh, that's it. That ignited something else in me when it came to their education and being in tune with their world, not just my world.
Right.
And that right there, I would say, is the foundation of why me and my children, and I'm so grateful, thank God, we have a great relationship, because I believe they have watched me fail. They have watched me pick up the pieces to the puzzle. They have watched me be human.
Right.
They've watched me be human, and I invite them in, and I tell them all the time, God really blessed me with some lovely children. And in the same sense, you guys are my children, but when I need a dad, you're my dad.
Right.
My mom, you're my sisters, and it really, in my household, that really works. It really works out.
Right. Wow.
It really works out. So it was tough though, and it's still, you have your days or whatever the case may be, but being a teen pregnancy, I wouldn't have ever imagined me being the woman that I am now and understanding as much as I do, still, quote unquote, being a little on the younger side.
Right.
Because
you're still young.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I always teach my kids that anything in life is 90% mental, and then everything else comes together. If you're not 90% mentally prepared, it's going to either break you or make you. How did you use, or how was, on a mental level, how did you stay strong? Because I notice a lot of times the kids these days, especially, we're dealing with a lot of suicide issues. And I know that all of it is not related to being a teen mom, but being a teen mom, it weighs down on you mentally.
It weighs down.
Now you're dealing with the judgment, but you're dealing with the judgment, you're dealing with the financial concerns, you're dealing with a baby, you're dealing with trying to, work or go to school. So mentally, let's talk about some of the mental challenge you had to go through, and then how did you overcome those?
I'm going to say this. My foundation in my mom's home came with an abundance of having to practice mental certainty of yourself. I'll say that. So I already had some knowledge in regards to me being a parent to my children. I assisted my mom with helping with my youngest brother, and then I assisted my oldest brother with the help of his kids. Okay. So I always had it in me, that mental portion. But of course, when you are out there as a teen by yourself with those kids, I can honestly say one of the mental challenges that I had was, wow, I have so much energy and I have so much potential to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Right.
However, my financial status won't allow me to do so, because I'm not out socializing, because I can't afford to be out socializing. And if I was to go out and be socializing, I can't keep up with the Jones. So I started writing down all the things that was prohibiting me from being the great part that I thought I was supposed to be.
Right.
And I made my mind up. That's not for me. I just can't. it's just not adding up, and I'm tired of feeling sad about it. So I'm gonna build my own bridge over here,
Right.
and that's what I did. And ironically, I built it off of the positive atoms in which I received from my religious background, if that makes sense.
Right.
I built it off of that. I went back to what I felt was so rare and sometimes obstructive when it came to how, some older people, traditions would be like how God would punish you and things of that nature. I took that and I ran with it in regards to a inner journey.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, I can't have what everybody can see, the fine cars and the big house and this and that and that. So how can I be the best me? Well, you got some trauma you got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Go and work on your inner being. Because when you walk in a room, you want people to actually feel a sense of, I want to meet her. I want that strength that she carries. I want to see what is that all about.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing. I've been working on my inner being, and anybody that's in close proximity, they challenge me, I challenge them, and we work to become better people, mentally first, because I just believe if your psyche is not right, nothing. Nothing. Because I've had my moments where depression have kicked my behind. Well, I didn't even know I was in depression until months later, and I'm like, I said what? I did what? Oh my God. But it took the support of the family that knew that my 90% of the time I'm not that way, for them to say, no, she's going through something. So they assist me in areas in which I needed to be assisted, just the whole family support or friend support that you have, I think that right there helps out on the mental note. But to sum it up, on the mental capacity, I feel like I had a lot of practice in my mom's home, and that right there, she equipped me. Her her house equipped me for some of my harder days that was to come on the mental note. I was equipped in that area. Okay. Yeah.
Now let's talk about, you just talked about the support system, because a lot of people really don't understand, not even just being a teen mom, just being a person in general. Your support system can either make you or break you. So let's talk about your support system. Like, what was the most important thing that got you through? And what is something or some things that you went through that you wished could have been better or could help someone that's going through this situation now to be better? Because I know one of the things, my mom died 2 weeks before my daughter was born, but I knew one of the things when it first came out, when she found out, is what happened, like it wasn't she didn't make me feel ashamed of myself, but it was like the blame game, like, is it my fault?
Yeah.
So you that tug of war within herself. So, and of course, anybody can have a child that come in at an early age that says they're pregnant. Your reaction, first of all, is shock. We get that. Yeah. But how can we help people to move past that shock and still be that support system?
How can we get people to move past that shock?
Well, not for you, like in your experience, how do you feel it was beneficial or even hindered you?
I feel like my mom's approach was a really good approach for me. My mom, she didn't, my mom per se, she did not just crucify me. She didn't. She did look me in my eye and she said, okay, you've done something that is going to change your status quo. Right. You're not a young lady no more. You're getting ready to be a woman, whether you want to or not.
Right.
So, time come for income taxes. We're gonna file your taxes. Me and your dad gonna figure out to get you an apartment. You're gonna furnish your apartment with your income tax money, and voila, you're gonna have to do what you have to do.
Okay.
At the time, I felt abandoned. I felt like, oh my God, my mom has abandoned me because I'm still just a kid.
Right.
But not until like maybe several years later did I realize what I thought was abandonment was her actually setting me up to be resilient and stronger and be able to deal with adversity on higher levels than a normal person. That's one thing I will say about teenage pregnancies. The ones that really put their heart into it, we're strong. We're very resilient. We don't fall or fold easy. We just don't. And that's something I will say that I absolutely feel was the greatest support I could have received. I didn't think so. Like I said, I was young, naive.
Right.
But that was one of the greatest things that she did to support me in that during that time of that teenage pregnancy. But one thing that I wish I did receive more of, I do wish I received more of affirmations.
Yeah.
Hey, although you're a teenage pregnancy, you conduct yourself as a respectable young lady.
Right.
Hey, although you're a teenage pregnancy, you don't actually call and ask anybody for anything.
Right.
You know, those things, I would say water properly fertilize my weeds. Is basically what I would say to people. Properly fertilize my weeds, because at that phase of my life, it was a weed.
Yeah.
When I was young,
yeah,
it was a weed. However, what you do with it is where the power come in at.
Right.
In the essence, to me. And I felt like maybe with those who did support me, just the affirmations. I think the affirmations would have taken me even further when it came to accomplishing goals and things of that nature. Because you got to think about it. I'm still a kid, and I'm only believing. Most kids are only believing in what is told to them or what they can tangibly see.
Right.
All I seen was poverty, feeling hopeless sometimes. Like, oh my God, I got these kids. I don't know how I'm getting ready to feed them. Like, what am I finna do?
Right.
On top of having to dig so deep on a spiritual note, because as we both know, as teen pregnancies, we're still young. Our minds are trying to figure out how we're gonna make this money. It can get really tricky.
You can.
It can get really tricky, you know, to sum it up, and to still be able to have some sense of integrity behind you, knowing the options you could have chose to make way. That right there, to me, that separates me, the broken me, from the healed me. And is how I look at it.
I have two more questions, I promise you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
So let's talk about the spirituality of it. When did you come to reality? And let's talk about when you came to reality that God forgave you the moment you went through that process. The moment you got pregnant, God forgave you. But a lot of times we don't get to that point until time later that he forgave me at that point. He had me under his grace. So when did you get to that point, and how was that experience for you? Because a lot of kids need to understand that in anything they do, God still loves them. At the end of the day, regardless of what you did in the past, what you're doing right now, you know, God is still going to love you. He doesn't hate you. Religion teaches us that God is disappointed at us. Religion teaches us that God hates us. So let's talk about that point when the reality came that God still loves me.
In the isolation, I told you I set it for myself. I was confused because I'm like, how is it that I am this unclean young lady because I, had sex out of wedlock and got pregnant with the kids? How am I so unclean and feel through human beings' eyes that I'm beneath and not above? But when it comes to me walking throughout my daily life, I actually don't feel bad. I feel at peace. What is the middle ground?
Right.
So during that isolation, I realized to be quiet and watch people and how they conduct themselves and ask plenty of questions. So I started asking all my elders, how was life when y'all grew up? What was this and what was that? And I came to a conclusion that a lot of them, they experienced the same thing I did. They did the same thing I did. And then at that point, I had to say, are they hypocritical, or do they have a certain level of ignorance based off of religion?
Right.
Not spirituality, but
Right.
religion. And that's when I said, oh my goodness, they're only doing what they were taught. And most people knock the next person down to make sure that they sound like they did good or they feel good.
Right.
And that's when I start realizing, oh my gosh, this self-righteous thing, it goes way deeper than what the eyes can see.
Right.
So I said, in my isolation, I am going to ask all these questions. I'm going to figure out, why do I still feel okay about being a parent? Because I'm doing the best that I can, and my kids love me. I love them. I don't feel like God is just whipping on me like how they whipping on me. I don't feel that.
Right.
So I said, quietly, I asked questions, and I figured out that they went through the same thing that I went through, and I didn't pass judgment on them. And that inspired me to look deeper in God's words in regards to what he say I will go through, or we all will go through on earth, for me to start being able to discern different spirits, where they are, what they doing. Are they there to give some type of growth, to me, or attack me? And if they are attacking me, is it really they're attacking me because they feel like they have to attack me, or is it something about me they don't quite understand?
Right.
So that opened up a door for me to truthfully be pure at heart towards people. Behind their backs, in front of them, I'm pure.
Right.
When it comes, to it. So for me, that's what that was. That's when spirituality really started kicking in. Because I was challenging, like, what? I feel okay. I'm struggling and everything, but I don't feel like God getting ready to send me to hell because I had kids.
Right.
So I would say, if I had a young lady sitting in front of me, I'll tell her, this is the time. First of all, God don't make no mistakes. Having those kids at that early age, yes, it was a decision that I had made, but having the kids at a certain age, it prepared me for something so much bigger and wealthier than what the actual eye can see.
Right.
Like in my insides, I feel a sense, a connection. It's a connection that I have that it's like no value over it.
Right.
And that's what I would tell a young lady. Like, it's going to be hard, but you have to maintain a certain I don't know, understanding about yourself, that you need room and you deserve room to grow,
Right.
to fail, to understand some things, to not understand. Like, you really need to understand that you're a person inside of this journey.
Right.
Like, you're a person. I like literally visualize yourself being outside of what you actually physically see sometimes.
Right.
So you can really dictate to yourself and be your own friend, because ultimately it's just you.
Right.
Be your own friend.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
And the last question, if in this opportunity, what would you say to your younger self?
Ooh,
Through a life and all your experiences, what would you sit back and tell your younger self?
My younger self? What would I tell my younger self? I believe I would tell my younger self that every obstacle that you have is actually a door in every obstacle. And that door, you can hold on to that doorknob and open that door up based off of your perception of whatever it may be. And the perception, you make the perception. Just because it seems like it's a negative or derogatory thing going on in your life, like I would challenge myself to change my perspective of what that is really the opposite. Like, this is not something negative.
Right.
This is actually preparation for the next level of which I'm going to be going.
Right.
I would just keep reminding myself that the world tells you, I just kind of feel like the world sometimes tell you what's negative is positive and what's positive is negative.
Right.
Like for example, you have the teenage pregnancies. Right. Oh, they still shunned upon, but it's a little bit more open nowadays.
Right.
But they'll tell you that those young ladies, statistic wise, they're going to live in poverty. They're not going to be this, they're going to be that. But they're not telling you that those young ladies that were teenage were teenage pregnancies, those are some of the more commendable community members. Right. They're the ones that the backs of the communities. They know how to serve.
Right.
So that's what I would tell my younger self. Change your perspective of this door being a door of opportunity opposed to it being a door that's being closed for you. Just you have the power to change that thought process. It's no one else, it's you.
Right. Yes.
So that's what I would say.
Well, thank you, Ms. Nickey, for sharing your story with us today. I absolutely love it. And we definitely will have to have you back on the show.
I appreciate you having me. I really do.
And thank you to all our viewers for listening to her story today. We hope you join us for our next episode.